Yes.
Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for joining the talk. We have our speaker, uh, Mr. Kim here, who's going to present on blockchain, what and why blockchains are. So, if you would like to take the stage.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for the introduction and taking the floor to me. Again, my name is Mo Kim. I've been an assistant professor with the Department of Electrical Engineering with Georgia Southern University. By the way, I'm assuming that you guys can see my screen.
Yes, we
Yeah?
can.
Okay. Okay, cool. Yeah, so that's my affiliation, and I'm directing my own lab. It's called New Lab. It's a short for New Era Wireless. So there should be a separate slide for taking folks through what I've been doing in terms of my research and my focal points in terms of my career. So let me just push that to that slide. So with that being said, let me kind of show you how this entire talk will be organized. If you can see these last 3 points right here, um, I'm to be quite frank with you, I'm doubting that I can take you up to the end of this point, but I'll try my best. And these 3 points are actually the current focus of my own research in regard to blockchain. Um, and the first two bullet points right here, those are pretty much on what is blockchain and why the terminology blockchain has been buzzing around these days in our years. So let me just try to take you all the way through. But even if
Okay.
I, you know, don't have much time to complete this entire thing, that's gonna be fine. I'll be still happy. But in case you have any remaining questions or other things to discuss, you will be 100% welcome to reach out to me. So we can start from there. So with that said, let me take some privilege to take a moment to introduce a little bit about myself. If you can take a quick glance and overview on what I've been doing in terms of research, I've been trying to establish a cross sectioning umbrella overarching these three different components. My own dissertation study that was coming from wireless communications. So that's where I kind of started my career from. And I was able to get myself on the V2X communications, which is partaking in major components toward the direction of connected and autonomous vehicles, which is pretty much kind of fixed future for everybody's brain. We know that it's coming. It's imminent, right at the corner. We don't know exactly when, but it should be in a few years from now. So that's the focal point, one of the focal point that I've been pushing my thrust. And the second one was reinforcement learning, where because the automotive type of environment is always changing. It's supposed to be moving, mobile, changing in terms of topology, whatever you call it, channels, the number of vehicles, whatsoever, whatnot. So the only way to facilitate some optimization whenever you have moving vehicles like crazy, I adopted reinforcement learning as a means to accomplish some optimization of the performance. So that's the second pillar of what I've been doing. And the last one, most recent one, is blockchain. I know for sure, for a fact, because I've been working on the transportation type of work for last almost 5 years. I've been knowing for sure that these automotive and transportation folks, they are really much interested in adopting blockchain in their system whatsoever. Auto insurance, even municipal government, state government, federal governments, they are just fond of knowing about blockchain. So that kind of organically, naturally got me into knowing about blockchain. So what I've been doing so far, so these three, I'm trying to, kind of penetrate these three keywords. I'll be putting my efforts to adopt blockchain, apply blockchain reinforcement learning on to connected vehicles environment. So that was by my research. And if you ask me what I do in my life, this is what I do. Um, Here, my boy right here, this guy is going to turn 1 year old by the end of this month. A complete troublemaker, and this guy's sucking up all my time these days. But regardless, this is what I've been doing so far, and where I've been, and you can find far more details and information about my research in the papers that I wrote and the projects that I got. So if you happen to have any more interest, you can just check out my personal website right here, and there's my personal contact information too. So you should be able to reach out to me, and we can start from there whenever you have any further questions or anything, any further thing to discuss. And you will be more than 200% welcome to do that. So now I'm right about to take you guys into what actually is blockchain. And before we do that, I'm certain that many of you already have an even higher level of understanding or knowledge on blockchain from a wide variety of different contexts. Maybe from crypto, investments, or venture capital, you name it, because blockchain has been pretty much every single where. Uh, we don't care which background you are in, but blockchain is pretty much everywhere. So I, I just cannot measure your understanding on the blockchain. So what I'm presuming right here is that you have heard the terminology before, but you may not be 100% confident about your knowledge. And I think I know what blockchain is, but I don't know what exactly that is in terms of like technical words, and why exactly we're interested in blockchain these days, not 2 decades ago. So those are the main things that I'm trying to take you through. And before throwing out a dictionary type of definition on the blockchain, I've got a couple of examples from our reality. I'm sure that you have heard this term right here, this word NFT. Yeah, I understand this is kind of the crypto winter these days, for the last few months. So we don't see the word NFT as often as before on CNN, CNBC, Yahoo Finance whatsoever. But a few months before, whenever you turn on TV and watch CNBC or Yahoo Finance, and at least one person was talking about NFT and crypto. So NFT was that much close to our reality, our everyday life. So I just presume that you kind of know what the NFT is. It's just, to just spell it out, it's non-fungible tokens. So it's type of token, or it's type of a coin, right? That we know, based on like cryptocurrencies. And I have this as a very good example, actually explaining what the blockchain is. Let me put it in this way. So let's say, you bought a person A bought an item. It can be a sword or any fancy item on a video game, League of Legends, right? Then what's gonna happen is that because you purchased that, you made some payment. So the company that runs League of Legends, I understand that's Riot Games, right? So the company should be operating a certain set of servers. I don't know the exact location of that, but there should be some server rooms, right? So the linkage between your own identification, your whatever your personal information, your name, your zip code, your social security number, a set of your identification information, and the item's identification, with something like serial number, the type of item, and the quantity of the item. There should be created some linkage between your ID and the item's ID, and that linkage will be stored in a server or a number of different servers if it's a distributed server system. Anyway, the servers will be completely owned, coordinated, and operated by the company. The only single organization, the company Riot Games, that runs League of Legends, right? So that's the first example. And as a second example, if individual B bought an artwork, a drawing or any digital artwork on OpenSea. In case you didn't know, OpenSea is one of the largest NFT marketplace where you can trade, buy, and sell some NFT based on your own digital artwork, right? So let's say you bought an NFT based on artwork on the OpenSea marketplace, and the difference right here from the first example is that everything else is the same. Your identification because you bought it, and the artwork's identification, let's say the serial number and what type of artwork, and there should be the linkage, the linked information. But the difference starts here. The difference in regard to NFT is that that linkage, that information, is going to be stored throughout the network that constitutes the blockchain. In other words, that linkage information is now written on a blockchain instead of a single server that's being operated by a single company. So that's the drastic difference between any situation where you bought a certain thing and you store that information into a single server, but instead of doing that, what the NFT does is to store the information on a blockchain. Well, one of the most famous blockchains that's being used for that purpose is Ethereum, one of the layer one chains that's pretty much customized for the purposes of smart contracts, right? But anyway, so that's the difference. Then what about blockchain? Why are we so much interested in just the fact that instead of storing some information into a server, instead of doing that, we write that on a blockchain? What's so special about blockchain, and why is that a big deal? So that's the next thing that I'm trying to make you understand through another example. What if we take an example, with sending some money, transferring some money. So money transaction example here. If we take an easy example in a traditional type of money transfer system, there's an individual A, and this individual is caring to send $10 to another individual B. And in the current traditional setting, and what we do is to go to its own bank. It could be Chase or Wells Fargo, Bank of America, whatsoever, right? This individual can go to one of the physical branches or just on a mobile app. Either way. So this individual is gonna make an order to its bank, and the bank transfer $10 of his balance to the recipient's bank, and individual B, the recipient, goes to his or her bank in order to withdraw that money. So all in all, we need a bank in the middle in order to transfer your own money. That's how all the money transfer works so far. But if you want to implement the same functionality on a blockchain, and what actually happens underneath that, by the way, I'm taking an example of proof of work here, where all the constituents are participating in verification of any given transaction. So again, this individual A, is gonna send $10 to individual B. Then what's actually happening if it's on blockchain is that all the other participants, namely C and D in this case, who have nothing to do with this transaction. This transaction is only occurring between A and B, so C and D have nothing to do with the transaction, but they are still taking a part in storing these transactions, because one of the most probable situations that you want to avoid in any money transaction situation scenario is that the sender says, hey, I have sent you $10, and the recipient says, no, I've not received it. Right? So we need a witness who has the kind of proof that a certain sender has sent the money to the recipient. So the C and D, namely all the other participants on the blockchain network, they participate in storing the information. So whenever there any dispute occurs, then these witnesses partake in order to prove that it was true or false or something like that. Right? So that's the blockchain. So putting all together so far, so from here we have observed that NFT, that buzzword right there, that was able to cause all the investments, and looks like it was just forming a single stream of all the money and all the industry, and that was all coming from the fact that it's just storing all the data on blockchain. So what's special about blockchain? Blockchain just stores data in a completely distributed manner all over the constituents or the participants, whichever you want to call it. They spread all the data to all around the network, so everybody can act as a witness whenever something undesirable happens afterwards. So all in all, so far, now we are kind of in a better position to define what's blockchain. So yeah, it's a distributed manner of storing data. And I know it's going to be an organic question, that isn't that something that has been existing from long ago, right? I had exactly the same question, because I'm coming from, like I said, from wireless communications and networking type of field. And we called it in all different names, like distributed networks or ad hoc networks, you name it, whatnot. And if you are coming from computer science type of area of study, and you have heard the same concept in other names like distributed server, distributed systems, distributed networks, so on and so forth. So what I'm trying to say here is that the concept of distributing the network as a means to store that in a more reliable way, it's not a new concept. It has been there, but what's such a big deal about the blockchain, especially these days? Why today, and why blockchain? Why it's just why it's burgeoning only these days, not 1 or 2 or 3 decades ago? There can be other explanations, but I would like to put that in this way. It's all about hardware. In order to put any idea um, realized into the reality, into practice, it's all about hardware. It has to be cheap, it has to be affordable, it has to be easy to mass produce, and simply put, it was impossible before. Well, let me take an example. I'm not lying. If you check out this www.blockchain.com and slash block size. If you want to start becoming a new Bitcoin miner, it means that you need to download all the existing chain so far, right? It's gonna take, as of a couple months ago, I'm sure it's longer now. Um, it's 420 gigabytes just just the chain itself for Bitcoin. But as you know, a single block itself uh, is going to contain 30 to 40 different transactions depending on the size of transactions, and each block is taking the size of only 30 to 40 bytes. You heard me right, it's bytes. But 30 to 40 bytes all the way to 420 gigabytes. So you can imagine you can imagine the quantity, how many blocks are actually constituting the chain, especially if it's block Bitcoin, which is the longest chain in the world by now, right? So what I'm trying to say here is that you need some memory, and it's not very long ago that um, this much storage is has got affordable, right? I remember last year I bought 1 terabyte micro SD cards, and it costed me around, I cannot remember the exact figure handy, but it was around between 100 to 200 bucks per each. It's just nail-sized micro SD card, um, as large as 1 terabyte, right? So now the memory is so cheap and it's everywhere. You can just, you can easily make a smartphone size of device having a multiple terabytes of storage. Now it's affordable. It's just close to you. And not only that, what about communications? You need to get connected to the blockchain network at all times in order to be, acting as a valid miner. You have to be connected at all times, but you don't know if it's like a smartphone. You don't know where you'll be, right? You could be at Starbucks or you could be in underground. And if you come to my house, for instance, it's a bad cellular signal space place. So having connectivity close to 100% at all times, i- it's it's kind of, because I'm coming from that area of study, it's not easy, right? It's still a challenge, but think about it, like 10 years ago it was even more challenging that time. So, I just took examples of these two type of technical components that are essential in implementing the blockchain. These are only latest story, right? So it's having that handy, having that useful, having that available at all times. It started not long ago. Okay, so that's why blockchain started to partake in your real life, and it was impossible like 10, 20 years ago, and only today it's it's coming from this rationale. So I'm right about to switch gear to the next part, then why you would like to use blockchain, and also I have some discussion on why not to use blockchain. And before we do that, um, did you have any questions or any comments so far about what's blockchain part? Yeah, well,
Can I ask a question?
sure, please.
So you said that the size of the blockchain these days is about 420 gigabytes,
Right.
and it includes all the chains. And does that mean that the size of the blockchain will grow?
Well, that's a million-dollar question, and the answer is yes. It's going to be only moving to a growing direction. It's gonna ever grow until we all die. Yeah, absolutely. Because more blocks will be appended to the chain. More blocks, more blocks, more blocks. So yes.
So then the following question is then, do you think that is it sustainable with current technology?
And that's another golden question. And well, this should be some sort of my own perspective or opinion or thought type of answer. But my answer is yes if somebody asks me that, because the velocity of growing the capacity of storage will be far way faster than the Bitcoin's growth in terms of length. That's what I believe. And also, you don't need to store that into. Well, I'm not an expert in the storage technology, but you can kind of split that into multiple different chunks, and you can just into smaller chunks, and you can store it into all different storage devices, because that's possible too. So I don't think it's going to be unsustainable, even if any chain is getting, just ever larger, ever longer in the future. So my answer is yes. I think it's going to be sustainable.
Yeah, thank you for your answer.
Well, thank you for the question. Was there anything else?
I had another question. This is Adrian. Uh, are there any applications to other industries besides NFTs and Bitcoins for blockchain?
Well, that's a great question too. Because I was going to have this slide right here, but let me just dive right into this. So this was one of the topics that I wrote research proposal on a couple months ago. And supply chain management is one of the areas where blockchain is kind of coveted. Really, these folks are crazy about the possibility of having blockchain applied into their own system. I can explain why. If well, I'm not a supply chain management expert, but we all know that, especially post-pandemic, time, we have been experiencing, the supply chain insanity, right? We don't have enough people coming back to their jobs, and we have a long queue of all the container boxes in the LA, Los Angeles ports, and things like it's been just widespread and happening everywhere across the board, the supply chain type of bottleneck. And plus, supply chain is one of the areas where a large number of and wide variety of different folks partake in. And the only problem they have is the trust issue. For instance, if a supplier, has any sort of the commodity sources, natural resources, and it sells it to manufacturer and regulator, logistics guy, and wholesaler, and all these folks have no reason to trust to each other. So if these guys have all the information written down on a blockchain, and it can be acting as an absolute trust to all these guys, simply because, as I will be explaining in a few moments from now, because whatever you wrote on a blockchain, you can never change that until you have 51% of the population of the constituents on the network, on the chain, onto your side, so you can bribe them, or you can be making friends with them or something like that. Until you are able to have 51% of all the constituents on the blockchain, so it's only theoretically possible, but in practice it's almost impossible to make any change or manipulation or any fraud on whatever data that was written down on blockchain. So if if all the supply chain data has been written on, let's say, on a smart contract that's based on Ethereum, then you can get the trust at least there. So the other personnel in the process can trust whatever the previous person did. Yeah, this guy cannot be lying because it's written down in blockchain, right? So to answer the question, there are just plenty of different applications where blockchain can be, coveted and desired. whenever you need some trust, you need absolute trust. That's where the blockchain can, can work for you. Did I answer the question?
Uh, yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Was there anything else? Anybody else? All right, yeah, sounds cool. We're gonna actually come back to this slide um, in a few moments, by the way. So now let's then talk about. So now we understood then what the blockchain is. Then let's just kind of switch gear to why blockchain can be useful. Although we have already touched a little bit upon that. And before that, because we're engineers, well, I'm an engineer at least, and usually I'm a skeptical person. So when everybody talks about blockchain, I actually ask this question: Is blockchain the new flag? Is it true? Is really blockchain a slam dunk? Can it solve all the problems that people have? And if you are kind of beginner in terms of blockchain, and if you want to collect some information from all different sources, you might be ending up, you know, with this, right? Yeah, it looks like blockchain is forming a new mainstream, and it looks like it's a new black, and looks like it's a great solution for many problems if you read these type of things. And probably not, especially these days, right? The central bank is tightening the money, and that's certainly affecting the crypto scene. We're calling it a crypto winter right here, right? Investment is drying up, especially to blockchain industry because they are too future looking, right? So they are not making revenues or profits right now. So people are reluctant in investing to those companies and those industries right now. So certainly, yes, we are experiencing some crypto winter, and the money's drying up right now. And right, so if you can see both sides of what's happening right now, you might get confused, right? Is blockchain really a good solution? Is it really worth um, garnering all the attention from everybody? So let's get kind of deeper, dive into that as to why we are talking about blockchain here. Again, I want to take this moment to once again emphasize that all the benefits about blockchain, they're coming from the distributed structure of whatever type of blockchain whatsoever. There can be just wide variety of different types of blockchain, but many of them, almost all of them, the deep in the side, the benefits are coming from the distributed structure because everybody can be a witness for any problem or any dispute, any issue in the future. In that way, they can build up the trust and they can guarantee the trust. And this is the fact that I talked about. Whenever you have something written on a blockchain, it cannot be invertible until you have 51% of the constituents to overturn any decision. So um, let me take you some examples. Ethereum so far, and I'm sure it's even more than now, even larger number than this by now because it was around a year ago, right? Ethereum is a layer 1 network with 3,481 nodes. I'm sure there are more than that. And whatever information that's written on Ethereum and you want to overturn that decision, and I cannot even calculate in my brain right now, but you need at least around 1,740 something nodes onto your side, right? You can bribe them, you can buy some coffee or buy dinner, whatsoever, but you are not going to be able to do that to more than 100, 700 people around the globe, right? That's only theoretically possible, but practically almost impossible. But as a counter example, there's a there's a popular blockchain that's called Clayton by Kakao in South Korea. It's one of the brand new blockchains. So um, again, I'm sure it's larger by now, but as of November last year, there were only 30 nodes. So what I'm trying to show you by these two contrasting examples is that if you want to overturn this small chain right here, you only need 16 of them to stand on your side, right? So there is the size problem certainly. So the more nodes you have onto a certain blockchain, the more secure system, the higher level of guarantee that this data that's stored in this blockchain is secured, and it's going to be more trustable because there's less and less chance of being able to overturn the decision, the data that's written on that blockchain as you have more nodes participating in the chain. So 16 versus more than 1700, it certainly is a difference. Okay, so the trust on the blockchain, it's coming from this high difficulty in terms of being able to invert whatever data written right there. And again, we got back here the supply chain management, and I also have another example. I was able to talk to one of the venture capitalists when I was traveling Korea over the summer, and he was talking about in the used cars industry, Carvana, CarMax, Vroom. We have major players in the U.S. as well in the used cars industry, and they are interested in adopting blockchain as well because of the same reason, same rationale with the supply chain management. We can easily think about it. If you have any used car in any large market like Carvana, you actually want to trust that this car has been owned by a certain person before, and that was the only previous owner, right? If you want to trust whatever that's written on your contract, right? That was the only previous owner, or this guy had no accident before, and this guy was all doing all the due diligence on this vehicle, like repairs and what you call it, you know the checkups, uh, whatever, right, in the contract, in the ownership. So because in other words, the used cars industry, it's one of the less trusted areas these days as the current setting. So these used cars player, they're also interested in adopting blockchain in order to establish an absolute trust, penetrating all the owners and all the other personnels, all the other folks like repairers and sellers and wholesalers and dealers. So yeah, that's another example where you know blockchain can be adopted. And again, the only thing that I'm trying to highlight here is that whenever building trust, whenever guaranteeing the trust among a wide variety of people, and that's exactly where blockchain can act as, can take the main role. And now, like I said, because I'm I like to take a skeptical perspective for anything. Uh, to balance the discussion, let's just talk about this as well. So why not blockchain? In other words, are there any reasons not to adopt the blockchain? And I have a couple of rationales behind that too. In case you have not heard this word before, there is a concept that's called blockchain trilemma. It's English, so you should be better than I am in understanding this terminology. So trilemma is the three version of kind of the lemma, right? So what it means is actually there are three different pillars, three different components, parameters that you want to meet, in regard to a blockchain system. Number one, scalability. Number two, security. Number three, decentralization. Well, scalability can be understood as almost the same as the speed, right? But let's take an example. If I work on certain work, if I grade my own exam for my own class, and if I have my TA, so we two people do it, then it's gonna be twice faster, right? If I have five more people, it's gonna be six times faster. If I have 100 helpers, it's gonna be 100 times faster. That's a scalable job. As you have more participants, more helpers, more assisters, you have higher performance in relation to that. That's a scalable system. But it sounds like blockchain may not be scalable in some circumstances. So we're gonna let's just put that aside. We're gonna get back to it. So scalability is one of the issues, one of the pillars. The second one, security, and it has almost everything to do with the 51% attack, like I discussed in a few moments ago, right? So the size of a blockchain, it has almost everything to do with the security of a blockchain. So that's kind of a security aspect of blockchain. And decentralization, um, you know as we have seen from the money transfer example in at the beginning of this particular presentation, you know the blockchain has been motivated by people's desire to decentralize things. We don't want any singular person or party to hold all the information or hold all the authority, and in lieu of that we want to kind of spread the authority, spread the power, spread the information to everybody, and we are in the middle of experimenting if that's going to work in our system. So decentralization, where all the participants can partake in order to constitute a certain system. In this case, it's blockchain, and that certainly takes a certain pillar of the blockchain. So all in all, so we have scalability, security, and decentralization as the three main pillars for a blockchain. And what the trilemma says is that there exists no blockchain in the world on this planet. There's no blockchain that meets all of these three at the same time. There's no blockchain that can have all these three components met at the same time. Let's take an example. If you want to increase the scalability, in other words, if you want to increase the speed, the best working way is to reduce the number of participants. Then it's going to be faster, because you don't want to ask 1,000 people. Instead of doing that, you can ask 10 people. It's going to be almost 100 times faster. So you can reduce the number of size of the blockchain. That's going to be best working strategy for scalability. But if you're doing that, then you're going to lose the security, because it's going to be easier to overturn whatever data that's written on the chain. So right there, scalability and security was kind of forming a dilemma, right? And another example is that people do control the hash rate of a blockchain. You can understand the hash rate is higher, then it's more complex. It's going to take a large level of computing power in order to get the calculation, get the verification done. And certainly if you increase the hash rate, then you can increase the security. But since each transaction is going to take a longer time to process, then you're going to sacrifice the scalability right there. So like we have seen in these two simple examples, uh, any blockchain, no blockchain can meet these three pillars at the same time. So that's a blockchain trilemma. And also, if we take a look at a more practical side of this, the reason for not adopting blockchain is gas fee. If you have heard this word before, usually people use this term from Ethereum because Ethereum is it's been working. Well, it's my personal opinion, but it's been working almost like a profit organization. Ethereum Foundation has grown like crazy, and it's a worldwide organization. And they take some gas fees from blockchain users, like NFT users and smart contract users. They collect some fee for using Ethereum network for using the blockchain. And of course, that gas fee has a large range of fluctuation depending on the Ethereum's value. As you know, these days Ethereum is around, I think it was around 60% discount from its previous high, right? So around this time, you can pay only around, as far as it's one digit. It's not even more than $10 per each transaction if you want to pay gas fee and transact on Ethereum. But it used to be almost around $200 too, for the same transaction. So gas fee, some monetary costs that's being taken right there, and also the high fluctuation, instability of the gas fee. It's another reason kind of not to choose blockchain, especially Ethereum, as your means to store some data. And also, it's going to be kind of striking right here. Visa or MasterCard, two of the largest money transaction networks in the world, they can transact more than 24,000 transactions per second. And in relation to that, Ethereum can transact only 20 per second, Bitcoin only 7 per second. Well, there are some networks like Ripple or Litecoin that are faster, but I want you to focus on this number. In the number of digits, it's just they're completely different worlds, right? Visa versus Ethereum or Bitcoin. So easy conclusion here: the large layer one chains, Bitcoin, Ethereum, they are slow. They are just painfully slow. So that's another very important reason not to adopt a blockchain if you are caring to establish an application that needs some speed. So all in all, so putting all together, we can ask ourselves this question. So do you really need blockchain? Let's say you designed a fancy mobile app where people can reserve some table for dinner, the restaurants around your area, and you're not going to need blockchain certainly for that application, right? And I've been reviewing some papers and research proposals these days, because I've been working on this area right here. So I've come across many research papers these days on blockchain, uh, you know, that's being applied to some unplusable context or application. They just use blockchain because it's fancy, because it's a buzzword, right? That's not something that we want. So we want to be we want to be holding an objective perspective. Do we really need blockchain? And so that's why we have gone through all the pros and cons and whys and why nots, right? So in order to help you understand that type of perspectives, I would recommend you taking a read onto these two articles. I remember that this particular paper right here, the PDF version was available if you just type in this title on Google Scholar, and this was a wonderful paper where these folks were able to analyze into a type of you know there are some questions to answer, and easel application, speed limited easel application, necessitating a large number of participants and things like that. So depending on answers to all different questions, you can conclude that your application is gonna need a blockchain, is a good fit with blockchain, or no, or the classical encryption decryption techniques will suffice, right? So this is almost the conclusive remarks right here. So blockchain is a fancy thing. We can admit that across the board. Blockchain is a new thing, and it's gonna be forming the mainstream in the future. Well, at least based on my own belief and my own perspective. But there are some applications and scenarios where blockchain cannot be serving your purposes. So we want to know more about blockchain and why not. So that's what kind of I have taken you through so far, and because it's almost I've used almost 452 minutes. um, I would like to stop here. If you have any questions so far, and we can talk about that, and if you have any interest in reading the rest of the slides, I should be able to share this one to you through Dr. Park or Dr. Chung. So you should be able to take a read through the rest of the slides, and you can send me any questions, and you can reach out to me if you have anything else to discuss with me. So yeah, let me conclude here. um, Thank you very much. Let me take some questions from you.
Yes, thank you so much. Yes, before you leave here, so would you share your PowerPoint slides with us?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I'm
Yes,
going to
Aram,
do. Yes.
yes, yeah. Let's go to Aram. Aram, would you get this one, and then I can find your article, because we want to improve our curriculum. Then also we are interested in TOPS, this decentralized app. This is the next Web 3.0. So thank you for your presentation. I'm going to another meeting. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other student, they're gonna have a question, then I can leave. Yes. Ali, where are you?
Yes, sorry.
Okay,
Hi.
control this one. Yes, yeah.
Sure. Thank you very much, Dr. Kim. Does anybody else have any questions or anything before we wrap up the meeting and call it a day? Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Kim. It was a pleasure to meet you virtually.
Oh, likewise.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you all.
Bye now. Bye.
Thank you.